Hey guys, what's up? This is False Bulls 123 coming to you from Medford, Oregon. And this is day, let's just double check, 36 of my daily quarantine vlogging challenge. Now, we are definitely getting a bit up there when it comes to daily vlogs. And as always, near the end of the week, I definitely have been just running a bit dry inspiration-wise. I have some ideas for next week, but it's definitely going to need to be doing some scraping, if you know what I mean. I think that if, I just work more on my scheduling, work more on my, actual, I guess, planning, I'm not going to have as much issues in, the future. But that doesn't help now, foresight's 2020. Hindsight's 2020. So I figured, it's just as I do enjoy doing these little story times where I kind of go and talk about a type of thing that I've enjoyed in my life. I think I'll just do one of those today. So basically, let me tell you how I got into genealogy. I think the first time I ever dealt with genealogy as a thing was probably when I was around 13 and 14 and my grandmother wanted to start one. And so I sound like a lot of fun because I'm pretty family oriented as a person. Family's a big thing for me. It was my major support system growing up. I had a lot of really positive family memories. And so having that large family is just something that has always been a big part of my life. And so I thought that was really fun because I wanted to learn more about my family. I wanted to know about how I'm related to all of my aunts and uncles. Because it was really complicated sometimes, because I'd have a lot of cousins that I didn't know how they related to me. And so we sit down, and I fill out probably about 3 generations. Pretty much just my grandma's siblings, my grandpa's siblings, and all of all of my cousins. And that was a good 40, 50 people at that point. So it was a lot. It was a bit. And it was a little hard to, actually comprehend all of them and how they were related. But I was trying my best to, write it down and copy it. Now, I am going to pause for a second because I actually want to go grab something. Thanks for waiting. Anyway, I just wanted to grab my genealogy notebook, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So, we put that down for a while. I think I still have the original notes somewhere, but they're absolutely redundant at this point. And so, pretty much, I put it down, and that was fun. I'd never done genealogy before, but it wasn't something that I was being super into at that moment. I started genealogy again sometime, middle of 2019, and I did talk about it before in my year-in review live stream that I did for New Year's. That was actually my first live stream on this channel, which was actually kind of cool. And so, mostly why I started the live stream was because of I was mostly just feeling, oh lordy, I have to sneeze. Nope, it went away. Cool. Sorry. Anyway, the reason why we started doing genealogy was mostly just because I felt really shitty. I felt really isolated in Coos Bay. And so, doing genealogy, learning about my family, talking to my family members, was really a way for me to reach out, to have that support network, to talk to somebody. Because I was just so fucking alone when I was in Coos Bay. And so doing that was a way of me reconnecting and, in a sort of weird, vicarious way, socializing. And it was actually really enjoyable. I tend to throw myself into my hobbies. Always just how I've been. I literally, I didn't just start a YouTube channel. I'm just fuck that. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to start multiple blogs. I actually plan on starting 2 YouTube channels. I just don't have the time or really editing skills to produce the other one that I want to make, so. Anyway, guys. Yeah, but I tend to throw myself into my hobbies. So, I started reading up on, how you do genealogy. I got an Ancestry.com subscription. I started, reading all of these books on genealogy. I started looking for all these records, and I started to learn things. Sometime later on, I would love to do a video where I just discuss genealogy tips and tricks to kind of, share my knowledge. But this one is not that type of video. This is just mostly me talking about, like, my experience with it. My genealogy story, if you will. So I started off small. I think I began with mostly just Facebook. I literally texted my mom and I'm just like, hey mom, like, what are the names of my first cousins? And she's like, oh, here you go. Like, and so she gave me, like, it started. Like, yeast in a sourdough base. And so I started looking at that. I started scouring Facebook because, it just gives you a lot of information. And it is amazing what you can glean. Genealogy is pretty much just any form of research, but it really shows you how to parse information. How much, like, stuff you can find out through logic and through context that you wouldn't be getting if you weren't paying attention. And so, like, for instance, if somebody lists their age on a census, you can estimate the time of, like, their year of birth, things like that. And so, pretty much, it's just, like, a matter of critical thinking and a matter of observation for a lot of it. And so I was able to find a lot of my family members basically by going to, like, one of my aunts and uncles, like, Facebook accounts, seeing, like, looking for their photos and seeing who they say, hey, I'm with my son, or I'm with my daughter, or them listing it in their, like, about page, or their sons and daughters, like, liking a photo or a comment, or things like that. And so 80% of my family, like I say extended family, though in the realm of genealogy that is very vague. Essentially what I would call my intimate extended family. Pretty much everyone that's related to my grandparents. Which I don't really count my my biological father's side of the family. We're exchanged, we're all the other wars that mean that I don't think or talk of him. And so I don't really count that as my family, because to me, they're not. They've never been in my life, I don't want them to be in my life, and that's really just how it is. So, off the maudlin shit. And so I got, like, and I got, like, most of my family members from there. I got, like, a few good leads into my grandparents. And then I started, like, researching higher and higher, which is how you does it. And so, pretty much the interesting thing about genealogy is that pretty much it's like there's really no end to it, which is weird. It's like this, because mathematically, you have an exponentially infinite number of ancestors, which actually leads to something called the, I think it's called the ancestor paradox, where mathematically you should have more ancestors than are humans who have ever existed. But, like, once you actually get into the thing, a lot of people marry their second cousins, and it all kind of works out somehow because it has to. Like, you can't have an infinite amount. Not everyone can have an infinite amount of unique ancestors because that's impossible, as well as a paradox. Just to clarify what I mean by that, is essentially you have 2 parents, they have 4 grandparents, you have 8 great-grandparents, that increases exponentially each time, doubling, which means eventually there will be gajillions. Yeah. So anyway, so like, I started getting into that. I found a few resources which were helpful to me. I found a few obituary websites. I learned a lot about obituaries, actually. One thing I found out, and this is going to be in that video that I eventually make, is that while it's not always possible to find evidence of someone being alive, there's always some evidence that they are dead. And that's kind of true. You cannot put your name on census, you cannot have a birth record, but everyone has a grave, almost everyone has a plot where they bury the dead body. And you have to put a name on that, because otherwise they might bury a body on top of it. And what is this? Middle-aged England? No siree. I ain't gonna have no flood shoving my body down the hill. And if you aren't familiar with, like, I guess, middle-aged European cemetery standards, that doesn't make sense. Oh, wow! So I also got into a thing called Find a Grave, which is basically this online wiki community for cataloging gravestones. Which sounds either really nerdy or really goth, or both. The good news is that if I ever wanted to try to get with some big titty goth GF, I would have the perfect date spot. I'm just like, hey, you want to go to the cemetery and do charcoal rubbings? Because I think that sounds like fun. And I'm pretty sure that's what goths like. I don't know. Roast me in the comments for not understanding goth culture. It's okay. Yeah, so I actually started, I went to find a grave, and it's a really great community. Basically, you can find a lot of information about gravestones from, all of your family members. I was able to find a good amount of my family members' gravestones on that site. At least as far up as I was looking. Because some places I didn't have enough information to find them. Other ones, they just didn't have it, and I've put in requests for those. But pretty much everyone is trying to help you find these gravestones. And generally what's really cool about Find a Grave is that they pretty much I'm trying to think. Find a Grave that they pretty much allow the gravestones to remain in their families. So if you can actually request for a gravestone to be I say gravestone like the physical marker, but what I really mean is the plot. You can have it so that the memorial page, which lists a specific person and their gravestone marker as an identifier, to be put into your name so that you can, control the page, deal with any information that comes in and that type of thing. A lot of people, which are really nice, will actually include obituaries or other information that goes along with, the gravestone in the thing. So sometimes, I can actually, I'll, find the gravestone, and someone will have included a clipping from a local newspaper or from a church header or some, other place where their obituary was written. And so that was actually really awesome when that was possible. One thing that was cool is that I was actually able to find the burial location of one of my great aunts who died as an infant. I could not find her birth certificate. I could not find any information about her because she wasn't on any census paperwork because she literally was maybe a couple days old when she passed. She might have been stillborn. I can never quite remember, but she was an infant death. And maybe that has more significance to me as a genealogist than you, but basically it just means she died very, very young, before she was even 1, so there's pretty much hardly any information about her except for my family's oral history. So it's really good that I knew about her so that I could actually find information. So I called, I found the cemetery she was in, I called and to get the plot, and then I set up her page and requested a photo. And someone was actually really nice enough to go down to that place, find the gravestone, and, well, actually she didn't have a marker, which is not too uncommon for infant deaths. And she actually was able to show me the location of where my great aunt was buried. It was really interesting because she was not buried in either of the 2 cemeteries that my family members are buried in. Because my grandparents are buried in a military cemetery because my grandfather was in the Navy. And the rest of my family has a plot in Grants Pass, which hopefully one day I would like to be buried in. I know that's weird and morbid to think, oh, where do I want my body buried? But I said with Caitlin Downey that it's not a weird thing. I'm thinking yeah, that's where I want them to show my body. I want to be able to be physically visited, and I don't want to be in an urn. That's boring. Let my body rot in a hole while you burning me up. Have you seen this face? I want to be all skeleton now, okay? Anyway, getting off track, but what else do I do on this channel? So I had a lot of fun doing Find a Grave, and I kept searching. I started researching different branches of the family. I started getting really into that, and I started to be able to sort of conceptualize genealogy as family branches, which is a really great way to think of it. So one of my main areas of research that I was doing was the Greener of Hastings, Indiana. I believe it was Indiana. Took me a second. And so that was basically my grandma Robinson's maternal family. So basically, there was a woman named Cora May Greenwald. She had a father named Lorenzo Leonidas Greenwald. That's a fun word to say a couple times fast. And then he had a father named Samuel Greenwald. And I had a little bit on the my great-great-great-grandmother's side, but it was mostly through the paternal line that I was able to find information on. And so I was actually able to learn a lot about the Hastings of, maybe it was Iowa. I cannot remember. It started with an I. That's all I remember, guys. I know, I'm a fake fan. Actually, I could probably look at my book and see. So while I'm jibber-jabbering, I will try to see where exactly they were from. Ah, it was Iowa. Okay. See, I wanted to say Iowa, but I kept, like, pausing. So, basically, I had a lot of information about them, and I would love to show you this, maybe in another video, where I can sort of talk about my, shorthand and how I do, genealogy notation. Because I also developed my own shorthand for my genealogy notes. I don't think that's that weird. I've also developed a shorthand for writing recipes down, so I think if you just write enough notes of a kind, you like to simplify, even if it doesn't help anyone but yourself to read it. And so basically I started researching them. I found Ancestry is really nice because you can connect with other people who are doing research about their sides of the family. And so you can actually find a lot of information that they've entered into the system. So just in the same way that I found pictures of some of my family members that were not available and other people can use them now, people will upload obituaries or newspaper clippings and things like that. And one of the relatives, I believe a more recent descendant, or more closely related descendant of the Greenewalds, actually had uploaded a lot of newspaper clippings from the local newspaper, so wedding announcements, birth and death announcements, obituaries, that type of thing. So I was actually able to get a lot of information about the Hastings through those articles, and that was just so wonderful that they were out there. I also, which was really awesome, found out that so my great, I think it's 2 greats. Yeah, my great-great-grandfather. I had to keep thinking about it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 2 greats. Leonidas Lorenzo. He had actually written a memoir. He had written an autobiography. And so I'm thinking, that's super awesome. And I don't know what the book is, or I'd show you. I'll just have to show you some other time, because maybe when I'm doing my bookshelf tour. One of these days. Anyway. But basically he had written a autobiography, and it wasn't as, I guess, detailed with family history as I wanted. It more talked about sort of how sort of the cultural changes he's seen throughout his life, which is still pretty cool. And he would have different chapters for all sorts of different things. He talked about farming equipment and how the mail system worked and how all these other things worked in his life. He literally has an entire chapter where he just discusses how fashion trends change, and it's and now women, they wear different hats. And it's so interesting because he'll just talking about things, and I'll say something, and it's just I like it kind of this old way, and then he'll back up what he meant by that. He'll say it's I don't mind when women wear these days, but it's I just kind of liked when they wore dresses because they were really pretty, and I'm just well, that's a valid opinion. I mean, people can wear what the heck they want, but if you think that's prettier, that's up to you. I think 1920s fashion is that's a hot tamale right there. I'm just let's bring back boxy dresses. I'm just saying, honey, swing those hips. Anyway, getting back to the point, and so it was really cool to find a book that was written by a family member of mine, especially one that was in a historical context. And so I would find other things about that. I also spent a lot of time researching the Casters, and I don't remember where the Casters were. They might have been from Culver in Colorado, but I believe that was a different part of the family in that line. Because that was on my grandmaternal side that the Casters were. And the Casters just had too many fucking kids. The interesting thing is that I know that the Castor line is how I'm related to pretty much through my oral history. According to my family's oral history, we are blood related to 2 historical figures. Which, I mean, as far as fame go, that's not too bad. There's people out there who are yeah, I'm related to King George, and I'm just sweetie, that book you bought online doesn't mean anything. Oh, yeah. Those, surname books are not very accurate. Unless, you're a super famous family, Anyway, so pretty much my oral history's claim to fame is that we're supposedly related to Colonel Custard, who fought in the Battle of Wounded Knee, I believe. If you are an American, you would know what that is. If you aren't from America, you might not. It was basically just a battle during the 18th century. And battle is a bit of a misnomer. It's a bit of a propagandist misnomer, but that's beside the point. Essentially, it was a conflict between, I believe, the Sioux Native American tribes and something like, those white settlers who colonized everything. Anyway, basically, everyone died in that battle, and I think Colonel Custard also died. Essentially, supposedly, we are cousins to him. We are also distant cousins to Helen Keller, apparently, through my great-grandmother's side. So, according to my family, my great-grandmother, Bertha Keller, was supposedly Helen Keller's, third cousin, somehow, someway. And it's possible I haven't really researched the paternal side of my grandparents very well, just because it's a little harder to find information about them. That's kind of somewhere my brick wall is happening, because females, the maternal side of my family, they're pretty easy to find information of, but the paternal side, it's a little bit more difficult, so I never really got a chance to look into those. So besides, doing those research and finding things out about my family, I had, done, I kept going. I was learning a lot about my family, but at the same time, there was definitely times where it was very hard to keep track of everything. Eventually, I kind of put it down sometime after I lost my job, just because I couldn't afford Ancestry anymore. I really needed to focus myself on, other things. And so pretty much, it was just non-sustainable. Eventually, I do want to get back into genealogy. I want to start it up again. I figure, I'll make a binder, I'll start getting family charts together, and then I'm going to start, from the beginning, get as much information on locally, and that way I can build a good base to develop, the rest of my family line. And then just, go through and actually make sure that I have as much research as I can about everything. Because I have a good base for my family. I found about 500 family members, which is decent for only doing it for maybe 3 to 6 months. I don't even remember exactly how long I did it for. It was less than a year. Anyway, guys, like I was saying, I definitely want to restart my genealogy up again sometime when I have just more time to do research and more time to really kind of develop a baseline and get more research done on sort of the first generations of my family. Because, yeah, I managed to find a decent amount through census records, through other forms of, second references, whatever you call them, I remember anymore. Secondary sources, there we go. But there's also a lot of holes in my research. For instance, I don't know much about, a few of my great-grandparents, just because I was not able to find much information about them, hereditary-wise. And it's actually kind of interesting because one of my great-grandparents had a pretty interesting death. He had an accidental death by train, and I figure that has to be in the newspaper somewhere. There has to be some account of him, dying, because it was a very unusual death, so I want to research more, find out, if there is evidence of, that existing in, some sort of document somewhere. Anyway, I think genealogy was a really fun hobby that I did. It helped me, grow really close to my family. It helped me give me a sort of historical insight and helped me learn, a lot of really interesting things that I wouldn't know if I had not taken it. And so, it was a learning process, and it was a very enjoyable process as that. And I think that, it's just like studying any other form of history, except family history or genealogy is very personal to you, so it feels a lot more relatable. Literally, it is relatable. Anyway. But guys, I'm going to kind of shut up now. I don't really have anything more to talk about genealogy at the moment, though I do have a few videos I would love to do on this subject. If you're a genealogist, if you are interested in family history, comment down below. I'd love to hear, your experience, your stuff that you've done, and also, if you recognize any of the names I mentioned, like the Hastings, the Grindelwalds of Hastings, or the Castors, which I'm going to look and see if I do know where the Castors came from. Give me a second. Oh, I have the worst hay fever right now. I am so sorry, guys. Okay. Looks like they came from Harding County, Iowa. So yeah, if those names sound familiar, let me know. I would love to get into to connect with you guys, and I think genealogy would be a really fun vlog style to actually do in the future. If I ever do start my genealogy again, and I get to visit places where my families come from, like Holbron or Hastings, that would be so much fun to actually do a vlog style there. So there's a lot of potential for that line of Inquisition. Anyway, guys, like I said, I'm going to hang up now. I'm so bad at ending videos. I know, sue me, roast me in the comments, whatever. But just remember, there's a lot of things you can do to help me sort of grow my channel. Always, you can like it. Lets me know how I'm doing. Lets YouTube know how I'm doing. You can comment down below. We've already discussed that. And, of course, you can share. If you have friends who are kind of interested in getting into genealogy and they sort of want to hear maybe somebody's opinion on how they started it, how they got into it, maybe share the videos. Share my video to them. I'm going to talk about this more in the future on my channel, so, keep an eye out for that. And I'm very good at making playlists for all of the different subjects I talk about. So, of course, just keep an eye out. And always, guys, I always forget to say it, but you can subscribe to my channel. It's okay. I will let you subscribe. It is no problem to me at all if you subscribe. Because I just I want to grow my channel. I want to make more content that you guys enjoy. And so having that interaction, having that communication really helps me know what sort of content you guys enjoy making. And so maybe we can find a middle ground where I make stuff I enjoy, but you also get to see things that you enjoy watching. And, that's business. That's content. That's everything in the world. So hopefully we can reach that sort of, synergy together. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna go do stuff like cleaning and blogging and hopefully figuring out what the fuck to vlog about next week. So yeah, I'm gonna bid you adieu. Remember, this is False Bulls 123 and I'm signing off.